I wanted to talk a little bit today about a theory that I have about why people are sometimes so vehemently anti. My theory is that those people are likely bisexual themselves. When you talk to, they tend to base their assumptions about homosexuality and why they believe it's wrong on the idea, rather, that being gay is a choice. So I have some points I'd like to make about that, supporting my thesis that anti-gay people are probably bisexual. First idea that I'd like to throw at you. Anti-gay people believe that being homosexual is a choice. I don't think we can debate that. That's what I was just saying. They believe that being homosexual is a choice. I think we can go further and say they believe that heterosexual people are also heterosexual by choice. They believe that gay people at some point in their lives were presented with this choice and they chose poorly. My third point, anti-gay people must believe that everyone is presented with this choice. So therefore they must believe that they themselves were at some point presented with this choice. Because, you know, if they think everybody was, they are part of everybody, so they believe that they were presented with it as well. My fifth point, people who are confident in their sexuality state that they never were presented this choice. They have just always been heterosexual or have always been homosexual. I would say that if we were to do a survey, that we would find that that's up into the 90th percentile of people who say that they were never presented with a choice. That's just an assumption, maybe not that high, I don't know, but just the informal surveys that I've done of people I know, most people say that they were never presented with that choice. People who are ambivalent, my sixth point, people who are ambivalent about their sexuality would believe, because they are ambivalent about their sexuality, that they were presented with that choice. That because they're equally attracted, or somewhat attracted to both genders, they would then believe that they had a choice. And because of that, and this is a little bit of a theory about that, in a society in which sexuality is seen as a binary, self-identification of sexuality takes place early, between 12 and 16 years old usually, and people of that age are pretty influenced by their societal pressures, by their churches, by their parents, by the rules of society. They aren't really sophisticated enough at that point to be able to, wade through what is fair and what is right. They just see what the societal pressure is and kind of cave to it, and that's... Okay, people tend to take, this is my seventh point, people tend to take from themselves and generalize to society. Because all we have is the information that we've gleaned, and all that we have is what's inside our own mind. So if we feel that something like sexuality was some way for us, then we kind of feel that it's the same way for everybody else. Until we learn later in life that that's not true. It's true in some cases, but it's not true in all cases, and certainly individual differences are apparent. And I believe that homosexuality, heterosexuality, and bisexuality are one of those individual things. And the mutability, or immutability as it were, of sexuality is also one of those things. The bisexual anti-gay person feels that homosexuality is immoral, and wishes to prevent homosexuality, and therefore becomes vocally anti-gay. They do this because they made the decision before that they were going to live their lives. They were confronted with the choice whether to be heterosexual or homosexual, and they chose heterosexual because of societal pressures. They believe that, and religious pressures, and authoritarian pressures. And so they believe that everybody else made that same choice, that 90% of society made that same choice, when in reality 90% of society, or most of society, was never confronted with that choice, was never given that option. Because of this, they believe that any societal message that makes gay people seem natural or normal might make someone who is going through the same choice that they went through make what they assume to be the negative choice, which would be homosexuality. When again, in reality, your heterosexual and homosexual people are never presented with that choice. They just go whichever way their brain takes them, immutable. But they believe that everyone is mutable. The bisexual is then able to convince others that being gay is a choice, because heterosexual people, as a rule, but not necessarily on the whole, don't really give much thought to their sexuality. They're born into a society in which heterosexuality is the norm, so they don't really think of the process of their heterosexuality. So it's fairly easy for them to believe that the gay people had a choice at some point, and they chose to be homosexual, and they don't really investigate it that much. I mean, the heterosexual people just don't really investigate the origins of their sexuality that much because they don't feel the need to. It's not, it's not a squeaky wheel for them. Now, there's 3 steps to this idea. A, people, like I said, who are part of the societal binary. The societal binary is boy like girl, girl like boy. People who are part of that, like I said, are unlikely to have ever given the origins of their sexuality much thought. B, the bisexual anti-gay person doesn't explain that they themselves are bisexual because they don't consider themselves to be bisexual. They think they themselves and everyone else in society made a decision at some point to be heterosexual. So they believe that they're heterosexual. And they believe that they chose to be that part of their duality, when in reality they're actually bisexual, and they've just chosen to live that part of their duality. C, heterosexual people who have never given any thought to the origins of their sexuality are also influenced not only by that bisexual anti-gay person, but they're also influenced by societal pressures and religion and parental authoritarianism and peer pressure. And they're easily led to vote against gay causes and to be anti-gay themselves because they're not aware of the motivations of the bisexual anti-gay person, and they're not aware of the origins of sexuality in general. Even though, if pressed, they would probably say, well, I was never given that choice. But they don't necessarily follow that logic back. I think other evidence of this is that it seems that the more vehemently anti-gay people seem to have a lot of problems. People like Mark Foley, Ted Haggard, Larry Craig, or to just name a few. And I also suspect that Pastor Fred Phelps is an anti-gay bisexual. If you're just that vehement, I mean, you have to think that everybody was given that choice. I don't believe that bisexual people are the villains of this piece. I think that a misunderstanding of, and generalizing to society of your internal feelings is the villain of this piece. If people would just live and let live, that would be great. But if people believed when somebody said, I am not gay by choice, I'm gay because I was born that way, and then asked some heterosexual people, do you feel that you ever had a choice in the matter of whether you were gay or straight? I think that they would find that most people would say that they didn't. And if you believe that gay people had a choice, or you believe that everybody makes a choice at some point as to whether to be gay or straight, you're wrong. So that's my theory. I'd like to hear what you have to think about it. Rate, of course, and comment. And thanks for listening. Bye.